Well, good afternoon, board. I saw you earlier, and now we're back again. I have some really great teachers here with me this afternoon who want to tell you what they know about our reading units of study. I have a quote they asked me to read to you. This is from Lucy Calkins, and she and her team are the ones who developed these units. The research on reading achievement is unequivocal and long-standing, and it shows clearly that reading is everything, including the amount and variety of what they read. It is directly linked not just to reading achievement, but also to overall academic achievement. So with that being said, I'm going to let you talk to the people who are the real workers and the ones who really know about this. We're going to start with Taylor Kella from Shaw, and she's going to talk about what does the research tell us about this particular reading program. Taylor, excuse me.
Okay. The question I would like to answer today is, what does research say about how much growth we should expect? Research lays out a continuum of growth based on the expectation that students will enter kindergarten as emergent readers and finish 8th grade reading at a level Z. There are clear goals set for each student, and the expectation is that using the reading units of study, that each student is expected to move at least one reading level per unit, if not 2 reading levels. So for example, no? Start over? Yeah, okay. All right, we'll try that again. The question I'm answering is, what does research say about how much growth we should expect? Research lays out a continuum of growth based on the expectation that students will enter kindergarten as emergent readers and finish 8th grade reading at a level Z. There are clear goals set for each and every student, and the expectation from the reading units of study is that they would not only move one level during each unit, but they would also could move 2 levels, 1 to 2 levels. So for example, as a 3rd grader, you should enter 3rd grade at a level N and leave at a level Q. Using the reading units of study, this allows for them to not only achieve that goal, but to have the potential to double or to move 2 reading levels per unit. Throughout the year, data is collected throughout the whole entire year. We are assessing, and we act quickly when we see that students have moved so that they're on the correct level.
So my name is Deidre Kaufman, and I'm answering for you about the model that we're using to do these lessons. So the first thing that I want you to know is that all of this is research-based, and it's a balanced literacy approach. And so we believe that since it's research-based and because it's what's best for kids, that all kids need this instruction. And so we have worked together at our building to make sure that no kids are being pulled at that time, that every kid is there for this Tier 1 instruction because it's that good for every kid. So the model is laid out that we start with a read aloud, and this read aloud is one that's suggested in the units, and it allows us to talk about characters and have common experiences with our kids. It builds our community. It helps our kids to have a basis in which to understand all these strategies and things that they're learning about. So then after the read aloud, we move right into our mini lesson, and the mini lesson is mini. Lucy says that it should be like 10 minutes, and that in that amount of time, you are giving them a connection and bringing them to an understanding of the topic of the strategy that you're going to teach them by linking it to something they can grab a hold of, some real world thing. This is my favorite part of the lesson. I have the most fun planning and thinking of what I'm going to tell them and then bringing it back up in the lesson. So because of that, the kids are super engaged. It's usually a story about myself or about something that's happened with me. So I pull them right in and I lean in close to them and I talk with them. And then I teach them. They get to practice it and try it right there. And then I say, off you go, and send them off.
Hi, I'm Sarah Whittle from Sonora Elementary, and I'm going to continue what Deidre was talking to you about with the reading workshop. when should we say off you go? That's the independent work time. And I think it's the most important time of our workshop. That's when students are practicing what we've been teaching. This is a block of time that's 30 minutes, and this time provides an opportunity to read long and strong, we say. It helps them build their reading stamina. They have tools like their reading log to help track the volume of reading. But engagement's very high at this time also because students are choosing what they're reading. They're choosing which books they want to read based on a reading level, a band of their reading level. The teacher, during this time, we're doing work as well. During this time, we're pulling groups. Now, these groups might look different. We could do guided reading, which we've done in the past, pulling a small group of students who have, they need to work on fluency and expression, and we're trying to work on growing them and getting them through those levels. A teacher also might pull a strategy group at this time. This is very responsive teaching. You are looking at your students and seeing what exactly do they need based on the work that you've seen them do, based on their JOTs that they're doing during their independent work time. And you're meeting with that strategy group just to kind of get them on track and say, oh, you're about a level 2 right now. Let's see how we can build on that and take you further. A teacher at this time also is doing individual conferences. Like I said before, it's very personalized and responsive teaching. After that 30-minute block is done, it's now time to regroup back at the carpet together, and it's the share time. The share time is where we're giving students opportunity to talk about what they've been working on, to share what they've been working on as readers. And it's also accountability time, where they are bringing their work in, fostering that independence, saying, this is what I've done during my time. It's time for them to share their thoughts and learn from other students as well. And we've seen that when we give students a purpose, then whatever they're doing, they're more committed to it. So that share time is kind of their accountability time.
All right.
Hello, I'm Amanda Tracy from Shaw, and I'm going to talk about the engagement piece, which I think is really one of the most important parts. In order for kids to be successful readers, they must be engaged, and not only engaged in what we're teaching, but engaged in what they're reading, to build this reading life that we are expecting them to build. We want them to be engaged. And I would just say across this panel, we have seen some of the most engagement in reading that we probably ever have as teachers. And it's just the way that we are teaching them, and just the research and the books that we're choosing for them as mentor texts, and books that they're able to choose now, and their kind of wide range of the text level band, and the books that we are getting at our school to help with that. They are more interested in going to the library and choosing more books. We're hearing them more interested in what they're reading at home and just going to bookstores, the public library. They're kind of moving away from what we're calling, compliant readers to just more engaged readers and taking more ownership of what they are reading. Just across the board, we've seen in that time, that 30-minute time when they are practicing, how engaged they are by their reactions, how they're kind of turning and talking to others around them and getting, others to be interested in what they're reading. They can talk to us about their plan for reading, what they want to read next. Maybe it's the next book in the series. Maybe it's the next book by that author. Which is what I think we're seeing right now. I know personally I'm having trouble getting kids to stop reading. I even have one student who brings his book to the carpet for everything we do, which is kind of a struggle because, of course, I don't want to, stomp on that, but I also need them for math as well. And so I just think across the board the engagement piece is really a big piece that we're seeing that's really just kind of making us all firm believers in this research-based unit of study. I want to talk real quick about just classroom libraries. I know that at Shaw we've been more aware of what's in our actual classroom library and not just, I used to go and just grab books from here and there because they may have been $1 because, it was kind of on me to put in my library. And those are still great books to have, but I think it's just made us more aware of more engaging texts and kind of more texts that kids it's real world. It's what they're kind of dealing with now in their life. Another part of the engagement piece is just the anchor charts and the sticky notes that I don't know if you've seen them yet, but it just really helps track the students' thinking, and they're able to kind of go through the steps of what strategies and skills we've taught them in order to continue to build upon that reading life. And so they're easy for kids to use. They're a great reference. I've definitely changed the way that I've done anchor charts to not be so cutesy and to be more meaningful and purposeful, and these definitely are doing that. Students just talking to each other, there's just more time for them to talk quickly about what they're doing, and that just is a huge piece in the engagement.
We go to Amanda.
And my question is, how does independent time or the reading time work? And the biggest goal with this is giving time for students to read, because research really shows that students need a long time of uninterrupted time where they can just focus on their reading, and they can start tying in these skills that we've taught in the lessons and start tying that into their independent practice. So our first goal during that time is for them to just build their stamina and just have time reading and practicing skills. And as a teacher, we're working with them and coaching them. And so we're really just coming alongside them and helping them and seeing where they are, instead of telling them, this is what you need to work on today or this is what you need to do. We're hoping and knowing that they're using those skills that Lucy has taught them and that we have been learning in the lessons for the students to build on those and start using them in their own independent time. And so we come along them and we see what they're working on and what they're writing down in their on their sticky notes, and coaching them along and saying, this is where you are, where do you want to be, or where could we be, and setting goals with the students and providing them that coaching that they need to keep going further, but then also helping them with where they are and just meeting those goals and motivating them in that reading. And a big part of that too is just personalizing the learning and making that individual. So at times we're pulling groups and working with groups on different skills and strategies that we have taught, and other times we're working with individual students and meeting those individual needs of the students so that they're getting specific feedback for them that helps them continue to learn and grow and meet needs that they need to become lifelong learners, because that's our goal, is that we coach them right now and we teach them, but we want these skills to be something that they can use for forever. And so we really want them to internalize them so that they can use them. And something with that is, this week I'm reading Pay It Forward with a group of my students, and I'm reading it along with them. And so every day I come along just for a few minutes with this one group and we talk about it. And today when we were talking about it, we all sat down and we were like, okay, let's write our prediction, because we ended at a very predictable moment in the book. And so today when we came along and we're talking about that prediction, all of us had completely different predictions. And so we were able to see, okay, does our prediction fall on a level 3, on a grade 3? Is this where a grade 3 should look like? And do we have all the components? And then from there we said, okay, let's keep reading and find out whose prediction is right or whose is wrong. And it kind of created a debate and a discussion in the class, which really created a community within our groups, and engagement too. So it kind of ties all those pieces together. And the independent time is really the meat of it, where you get to see the exciting part of kids taking in the learning. And then from that lesson, then I was able to jot down some notes and say, this is what the group needs for tomorrow. This is how I can motivate them and teach them so that tomorrow I can keep pushing them a little further so that their reading can become even stronger.
Okay, and we're going to pause there for just a second, because I think the board has a question that they would like to ask us. So let me see if I can find that. And it's not there yet. We will just wait on that. Oh, no, wait a minute. Oh, okay. They wanted to know, I can tell them that. They wanted to know what grade level this was for, and this is for 3rd grade. These teachers, the reason why we're here this afternoon is we have spent the morning with our kindergarten teachers from all across the district receiving training just like we are presenting to you. This afternoon, we work with our 3rd grade teachers, and so these are 3rd grade teachers from Shaw and Sonora Elementaries. Those 2 schools have been our pilot group this year, so they're a little bit ahead of the curve, and they are the ones, they did a panel discussion much like this with the teachers that were here in the room, and they could ask questions as well as the teachers across the district could ask questions, and we do that through the chat box that our Megan Rojo is managing here and that Megan Slocum is managing on your end. Other questions? Okay. Their question is, how do you monitor the individual students in their reading? Why don't we, Alice, do you want to feel that one?
I was actually just about to talk about that. I'm Alex Davis from Shaw Elementary, and sitting next to me is Karen Showalter, and myself and her are going to be talking about how we assess students. So we know that research shows that students need to read books with high levels of accuracy, fluency, and comprehension. And that is just what these reading units of study do. So the first way we assess is we BAS our students using the benchmark assessment system. We do that at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year and frequent times throughout the year. But the great thing about these reading units of study is in that big chunk of time that they talked about earlier, when the students are working independently, that is a great time for assessment that happens every single day during that 30 minutes of time. And we do that by maybe taking a running record while students are reading, and there are reading units of study assessments that are 1 minute long that you ask about 4 questions to quickly see if students are moving up reading levels. So before whenever we would BAS students, it was more of a process because it took longer and it took some time away from instruction because those assessments were a lot longer. But with these reading units of study, we're able to do them on the spot. You don't have a lot of materials that you have to pull to get ready, and students are moving up levels quicker because we are able to assess them better. And through these workshops, we're able to just listen to kids read more because there's more opportunities for students to read.
Okay. Karen, you want to continue that conversation?
I do. Is there a question coming in?
There, but you want to go ahead and finish on assessment there?
Yes. So one of the exciting things about the units of study is the learning progressions. The learning progressions, they're the standard that students should be expected to be performing at for each particular component of reading. We have, at 3rd grade level, we see on the same page the 2nd grade standard expectation for 2nd grade, and then our standard 3rd grade, and then the 4th grade expectation. So for each of the learning progressions, we have that 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade progression, and so that's why they're called the learning progressions. The learning progressions we give to the students, and we use those as teachers. So I think a couple of teachers have referenced already what a level 2 looks like, what a level 3 looks like, what a level 4 looks like. Using those learning progressions as we're monitoring and listening to the kids and looking at the work that they're doing, we're able to really lift that level and give specific feedback for each student. And the students can do the same among themselves. So in that way, they're able to set goals for themselves. I was doing this part of it, but I wasn't quite doing the next part to raise the level of my work. We let the students set their goals. We really, and we check in with them and meet with them and make sure that they're meeting their goals as well. So the thing about the learning progression is you know exactly what feedback to give. So the students know exactly what they need to do to get to the next level.
Okay. We do have another question coming in before Amy's going to come back and tell us about how our parents responded, but the question is, how have you begun to prepare to teach these units next year? So thinking about that, you've gotten some ideas on what you've done. What are you changing? What are you going to do for next year? Who wants to field that one?
I'll start, but
Okay,
surely,
perfect, Karen.
surely others can chime in. One thing I feel that I'm going to have a greater picture of how to build a reading life for these students. I do know that the biggest eye opener for me, and I'm going to start next year with this mindset, is the amount of time that students are reading. We thought we were giving students opportunities to read, but we weren't. We were, but we weren't doing as much as we should, giving students, really raising that volume of reading. I think we know what type of books that we need to be allowing students to be reading, what we need to have in our libraries available. I've already started book lists of worthy things to go with each unit so that I make sure I've got kids' hands on the books that they need to do the work so that they can read a high volume. Anything else for next year?
So something we actually at Sonora were just talking about before we came was that one of the things we want to get better at, we've kind of worked through a process of working on our mini lesson and getting that down, is I think we're going to make our PGPs for next year about this conferring work. It's not easy work, and even Lucy will say that it is. You have to be very responsive. You have to be looking at your students' work and pulling up beside them and asking them, what are you working on as a reader? That's her famous question. And so that's the work that I know probably most of us are feeling like we need to focus on, that because that's the part that matters. The mini lesson is short. It's so brief, and you're hoping they catch on to those strategies that you're giving them. But that time when they're reading and you're conferring with them, that is, for lack of better words, that's your bang for your buck. You know, I mean, that's where you're leading kids to move from the level that they're on to more sophisticated levels.
Would you kind of clear up for the board what conferring is? That's kind of one of our terms we use, but they may not know that term.
Okay. So conferring, I think, can happen in several different ways, and I'll refer back to what Sarah talked about when she was talking about the independent reading time. So you can confer with kids by pulling a small group around you and going back over a strategy, having them bring their book, you bring a book, you can model for them, show them. So that's one way of conferring. Another way of conferring is the guided reading that we've done in the past. Lucy doesn't say that has to go away. She actually says that for some group of kids, guided reading is still really important. They still need that support. So you can confer with them in that way. The third way that you can confer, and there may be more, the third way right now that I know of to confer with kids is that I just come up beside them one by one and I ask them, what are you working on? I look at the work they're doing. I compliment them. I do a quick little teach, and then I let them get back to working.
Okay, great. I don't need their mic. One of the questions that was asked was, we have 1,675 teachers in this district that probably all of them need additional support to be even more effective teachers. And how do we support them? One of the ways we support them is through professional development. We tried out the method that we're using right here today. We tried that out a little more than a year ago when we were beginning to roll out the ACT Aspire. And Linda Odell and Casey Phipps did a great job with that, of working with all of our teachers on that one. We are now learning this is a very effective way for us to deliver a lot of training to a lot of people all at the same time. It's very important for everybody to hear the same message. Those are the kinds of things we're doing. We will also continue to support our administrators, our leadership teams, so that they can go into the classrooms and support and coach out there. That's the primary way that we're doing it. We know that we are looking at how do we roll this out at the secondary level? What are the needs in reading for secondary teachers? As we explore that, we will design the professional development that needs to go around that. I have one more. I know I always hear what do the parents say about that? And I'd like for Amy Sandy, could you tell us about that?
Sure. So my question was, what's been the parent response? And overwhelmingly, it has been positive. I'd say that across the board, this whole panel, we're seeing nothing but positive things from our parents. For the first time, they're not having to keep after their kids to read. I loved what, I think it was Miss Tracy, said about a compliant reader. Like, we have engaged on fire readers, not just compliant readers. They're talking more about what they're reading at home. We had a parent night just about launching this, and that was the most we've ever had attend a parent night at our building. We've designed a hashtag, Read Across Sonora, where kids are caught reading and they post it on social media. And then I'm a parent myself. I have a third grader as well, and he's read the most nonfiction he's ever read. I'm not having to keep after him. He's got a book in the car. It's open before I can even say, hey, Corbin, what are you reading? It's already there. So they're asking about what to do at home. I had a parent come in and sat down and just said, tell me what to do. What do I do now? And we had a great conversation about that, and that's never happened before. So I will just say that overwhelmingly positive, and I'm super excited.
All right. And one last question. And I think we only had time for one person to answer it, or maybe two if it's really short. So as you think about the needs that you have and how you're learning right now, as a district, how can we better meet your needs? How can we do that?
I'll start by saying, I think just collaboration with the professional learning communities that are happening in our building, the collaboration with other schools within the district. I think we can learn from each other as we're all going down this journey. I know Charlene from Sonora Middle School has been a huge help to our building. I know Shaw's building as well. So collaboration and continued professional development is just that responsive teaching. We talk about that often, just being responsive to what we need.
Okay. All right. One other real short one?
Yes,
You want to?
real short.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll be real short. One of the great things that we got to learn today, too, was just watching each other teach and doing that in our planning time. So that way we can learn from other teachers and see how that should look, and then that gives us ideas that we can implement as well. So even just during our planning times, it gives us time that we can see other people instead of having to take time out of our classroom and go watch another teacher. We can do it right there in our planning time and learn.
Okay. All right. And we are over our time right now, I think. However, I do want to thank you, board. I thank you for asking questions and posing those to our teachers. And I want to thank our teachers from Shaw and Sonora. I'm sure you noticed that Ms. Voss and Dr. Stuman are among the group as well. And they are so supportive of what their teachers are doing, and they wanted to make sure that they were here supporting their teachers. So thank you very much. I will join you in just a few minutes. Thank you.